Welcome to the ANEW Body Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogrammed Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. And Chantal Donnelly, physical therapist and author of Settled, How to Find Calm in a Stress-Inducing World. We follow our guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back to the ANEW Body Insight Podcast. We are back for the second half of our interview with menopause expert Lauren Chiren. Lauren gave us some background about her inspiration to become a menopause coach and shared her insights on menopause misconceptions and issues with burnout. We can't wait to learn more. So, Lauren, we left off at a very juicy bit, and I'm going right into that because this is, a big interest of mine. You talked about the 7-day plan that you have with clients where they basically eliminate caffeine, alcohol, processed foods, red meats, all sorts of things. So give us a little bit more information about that and your insights about what nutrition best supports us in menopause.
Amazing. Well, you'll be able to add lots of value to this bit because I'm not a dietitian. One of the things as a personal trainer and nutritional advisor is I've been studying nutrition for years. And what I noticed is that there is a massive correlation always, all our lives, with food and how we feel. But when it comes to menopause, that is really heightened. And I was curious whether if we took out the things that we weren't naturally intended to eat, in my view, so if we can't pick it from the ground, spike it in the water or pick it off a tree or a bush or something like that, what would happen if we just ate like that for a few days and see what happens? So the more and more people I tried doing this with, the incredible results people were getting. So as I said, this isn't coming from a dietitian point of view. This is just coming from let's strip our bodies back to basics. Let's give our bodies what they're meant to have after we've made sure that we're well hydrated and we've got a good day and night routine. When we do this with food, we reduce the bloating. We take the edge off of the headaches. We start to really eliminate that fogginess of the brain. Our mood improves. We feel more balanced. We often, even in the space of 7 days, people's inches, start coming off, and it's just bloating. They're not losing any weight, but they're losing that bloat. The inflammation's coming down, so the knees aren't aching, the joints aren't hurting. And if that's what the body can do in 7 days, oh my goodness. How amazing is the human body? But people don't know. People just don't know.
I don't know if you've learned anything about the blue zones. I've done a lot of deep diving into the blue zones because I find them fascinating, especially as we age. I want to know, how do we age as gracefully as possible? And if you look at the diet in Okinawa, they don't even have a word for menopause because they don't experience those same, issues and symptoms that we do in the United States. And so they've done tons of research. The Loma Linda health study, it's one of the longest running health studies. They've looked at the Nicoya Peninsula, Icaria, Greece, Sardinia. And all of them, what they have in common is that they are primarily whole foods, plant-based. And what that means is you're eating things, like you said, straight out of the ground, picked off the tree or off of the plant, a lot of beans and legumes, very much, plant rich, maybe with tiny bits of animal protein thrown in there, but mainly for decoration or for ceremonial purposes. So it's really just, and that diet, in doing research on whole food plant-based diet, that is the diet that can help you with all age-related diseases. So that's amazing that that's what you're doing with them. And it just kind of came intuitively to you. I mean, it's not rocket science. Of course, our body is meant to, process natural foods easiest. But give us some of the reactions and just tell us about some of your clients and how they changed after adopting a diet like this.
So one of the things we do is we go through 2, 3, 4 weeks of getting them to reduce. I always say the word reduce. How many cups of caffeine can you replace with something else? How many glasses of alcohol can you switch out? How many days a week could you introduce of being alcohol free? My intention is obviously to have them free of these things before they go into the 7 days. And often people say, don't ask me to give up my morning coffee. Don't ask me to give up my glass of wine at night. There's no way. I'm just not doing it. And you can see that steadfastness. They're just not going to do this. They do it. They go for 7 days and they're like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. And they'll be resistant to finding 7 days. Well, I've got a dinner out, or I've got to take my kids here, or we're going on a vacation there. We've got a weekend away. We've got visits. And I'm like, okay, it's your life. You get to choose when you do it. It can be while we work together or some other time. I don't mind. I'd love to invite you to try it. So I make it an invite. Wow. So they do the elimination, they do the 7 days, and by day 4, they go one of two ways. They're screaming at me down the phone, telling me about how blinding headaches they've got, and all the withdrawal from everything, is like hitting them like a sledgehammer. And I'm like, that's okay. Keep going. Just support them. By day 4, oh my gosh, my belt is down a notch. Oh my goodness, I got out of bed without hurting this morning. Yeah. Oh my goodness, I've been going to the toilet. Okay. Oh my goodness, I feel great. Oh my gosh, I had sex for the first time with my husband last night. And this is in 7 days.
Yes, that is how powerful nutrition is. That is, I think, the most important message, along with all of these other incredible lifestyle changes, getting proper sleep. I always say this, and I've said this on several podcasts at this time now, but I tell my clients, my female clients, that they have to put the oxygen mask on themselves first. And if they're able to do that, they're able to care for everyone else. And this is what I discovered for me too. I think I felt a hot flash. I was like, I was really hot and sweaty. And I was like, is that a hot flash? And I decided to myself, I'm not going to experience hot flashes. No. And so I really looked into, the Okinawans, their diet. I added tons of soy. I added a lot of seaweed products, miso, those kinds of things to my diet daily. I haven't felt anything since. I also made a lot of those changes. I really drastically reduced. I think, during COVID, we were all like quarantinis, it was just like, let's just get through this. But drinking our way through it. And then caffeine, if you become reliant on caffeine, if you drink at night to get up in the morning, but if you really drastically reduce those, and I like you saying reduce, and I like you saying that it's up to you, it's, you listening to your body. When you actually truly listen to your body, you feel how good you feel with, a whole foods, plant-based diet. You're just like, full of energy, you sleep better. I stopped. I didn't have any more hot flashes after that. Skin improved, lost weight, you name it. So I do think you are here to give people a lot of hope, because I think that they think menopause is this kind of end of youth death sentence. And it doesn't have to be. You can have great sex. You can, you can have the energy. You can create more. And plus, I think after you hit menopause, and tell me if you agree with this, do you just kind of feel like you're your best self ever?
100%. 100%.
Give us a picture of that.
I very confidently run my own business. I run a global training company. I train hundreds of people to come into competition with me every year by training them to become menopause coaches, because I need to get more people out in the world. And I don't know anyone else that does that. I stand on stages in front of thousands of people all over the world. I appear on the BBC and CNN, on other channels and news outlets on a regular basis. I'm called a menopause expert. I don't think anyone's ever an expert in menopause, because we don't actually know enough about it yet. But that aside, I just love it. I can't explain it. There's a confidence that I never had when I was in a senior corporate role, earning serious 6 figures, in a very, very senior role, managing a lot of people. I didn't have a tenth of the confidence that I've got now. And whereas before, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with this, but before I'd have the hair done, the face on, the nails, the perfect suit, everything would be just so. because I'd be so worried about not being perceived in a certain way. Whereas now I'm like, it's my knowledge and it's my personality. You like it, great. If I fit, great. And if I don't, I'm fine where I do fit. And that kind of not giving a monkeys anymore, that for me is so de-stressing. The cortisol levels are managed a lot easier now than they've ever been. So
Yes. I love not giving any monkeys. Let's just teach everybody not to give any monkeys, because it really, what people think of us is not our job. They can love us, they can hate us. It's just not our job. And when you let go of that, you free yourself to just be yourself, to just let it go and enjoy what you're doing without being so self-conscious. So I love this. You and I. To give me a picture too, along with diet, what about exercise? What do you recommend? Because we talk about stress a lot. Chantal is a stress expert. And the role that cortisol, especially, and adrenaline and other things play in how we can actually move and exercise. And it becomes different when, especially when you're super stressed out and you're approaching menopause. What do you recommend people to do for exercise?
Oh, I recommend that you don't do what I did when I didn't know I was going through my menopause, which is, as an anaerobic athlete, as someone who's a sprinter and a judoka, I'm very anaerobic based sports, short, sharp, powerful sports. I trained to do a marathon, not knowing that I was going through menopause. I was getting injured. I wasn't recovering enough. I wasn't resting enough. I wasn't eating appropriately. I wasn't hydrating well. So I say, listen to your body. However, and interestingly, at the time of recording, I've just run a 21-day challenge to introduce people to weight training. And that doesn't mean buying loads of heavy weights or going to the gym. It just means learning to use your body. So talking about the blue zones, what do they all have in common is that they've got physically active lives. They're lifting and carrying and they're moving. They're not stationary the way so many of us are now.
Exactly.
So I get people to start thinking, how can they build that in with their shopping and their housework and their gardening, and also using our body weight to really challenge our muscles, challenge our bones every day. And it is, sadly, we have to. It's not an option. If we want to age well, we have to move our bodies and we have to keep that muscle strength going, because that protects our bones. It means that we can reach up to the cupboard and pull things down. We can carry our shopping. We can be self-sufficient. But we do know that we decline in muscle mass and bone density from, our 30s on. So we have to do something to compensate for that. And that is going back to diet, because if we haven't got the building blocks in there, it doesn't matter what we're doing. Exactly. So we need to exercise. And I've tried really hard to find a way to use my vocabulary to not want to put people off, because the word diet and the word exercise are words I don't use. I tend to use how
and
we
they're
eat.
They're also tinged in diet culture, and it means something
triggering.
else. I like to say like dietary lifestyle.
Yeah.
That I think is a
that.
better term than diet, because then people think, well, I got to be on a diet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, talking about our food choices and talking about our movement choices, I think it is less triggering. So when we talk about movement, I try to very gently eventually get people to think about weight training, because we just don't have active enough lives. For most people, we don't have active enough lives. And even someone that walks their dog every day, they have to do more. So we need to be building in those kind of weight-bearing exercises and potentially using weights as well. But there's lots we can do without ever having to set sight in a gym or go to a class. But exercise is really important.
The Okinawans,
exactly.
They're gardening. That's like their main thing. They're gardening. And so when you look at gardening itself, you're going from standing to squatting to lifting to digging. So you're doing all of this kind of functional movement.
Yeah.
And their weight training is like maybe lifting a tray of, vegetables or something like that, or whatever they're doing to clean their house. They're not in a gym. And you don't have to be in a gym. And you look at, I think it's Sardinia. that place has so many hills. So
Hills.
they
It's
are
like
just,
this. It's like
they're just doing hills. They're walking everywhere.
Mhm.
So I really like to hear that. I think a lot of people, when they hear you need to strength train, they think, oh my God, do I have to go to a gym? I'll tell you what I do is I put on like 2-pound weights on my
Mhm.
hands and my legs, and I'll do like bar
Mhm.
Pilates exercise in the
Yeah.
morning. You know, it might have a little
Mhm.
bit more of a cardio element sometimes. That's
Yeah.
it. I'm not like lifting like, 20
Yeah.
pounds or anything like that, but you wear those long enough and you do enough movement, you're going to build some muscle. So that's
Exactly.
really cool to hear that that's something that you're encouraging with their clients,
Mhm.
that it doesn't just have to be, going and
Yeah.
doing some Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff at the
Oh
gym.
gosh. No. And I think
Hmm.
one of the other things I often say to people, and I think it's so important that we tap into our joy. I think there's
Yes.
such a loss of joy. So I often will say to people like, oh, I don't like doing anything physical. I'm like, okay, what did you do as a kid? What did you do when you were a child? What lit you up? Did
Hmm.
you play hopscotch or skip? Or
Hmm.
what else did you do? Did you climb trees or ride bikes? What did you do that you don't do anymore? How could you bring
Yes.
that back into your life? You were
Yes.
not going to a gym when you were 7, 8, 9, 10. So
Nope.
what did you do to stay active and mobile back then? Get back into it.
Hmm. So does that encourage them to kind of
Mm.
get more into
Oh,
play?
yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the things people come up with are hysterical. But the safer ones that I can probably share are things like going back to netball or kicking a ball around or bouncing a ball off of a wall or,
Hmm.
hopscotch was one that comes up quite a lot and getting a
Yes.
bike, riding a bike and
Oh
joining a
yeah.
bike
I
club.
got a mini trampoline
Oh, yeah.
years ago, and I just bounce around on that thing. If I want some cardio and I need to
Great.
like get some energy out, it's also great for your lymph system. It helps to clear
Hmm.
it. Jumping around. I agree.
Yeah.
I also tell my clients that I used to train full time as a Pilates instructor. And the reason why I
Ah,
got into that is because it is so fun. I love it so much. I love the movement. I love the grace of it. And so that kept me going
mhm,
from, 20s up.
mhm.
So I think it's really important that people find something that they love. So that's a really wonderful piece of advice. Give us a picture too of what advice you would give to somebody who's just beginning their menopause journey. They're just starting to see, oh, I think I'm slowing down, or I got brain fog. What do you suggest for them if they're listening to this podcast?
Get educated, and know that
Hmm.
you're going through one of life's most natural processes. There's going to be somewhere in the region of 1.1 billion other people going through that by 2030 or beyond, depending when you're listening to this. And you are 100% sane, normal, amazing, and you deserve and are entitled to get all the help and support that you need and want to successfully navigate this time of life. And that is available to you. We just have to make sure you've got the empowerment to go and use your voice and get that help and support. So I think it's really important that people are learning to advocate for themselves. And like you said, when you talk about high estrogen levels in your 40s, we need to be able to nail that in one appointment, 2 appointments max. We don't be fighting with 10 doctors before we get seen and heard. And
Yes.
that's where we need to really get people to step up their knowledge and their personal power.
Yes. And I think, especially in the
Mm.
States, and you might experience this too, I think women tend to feel that after 40, they're cast off, that they're no longer a viable member of society. They're not youthful. They're not this and that. I think that comes straight out of diet culture. And so, how would you counsel somebody who comes in with that mindset, with that mentality? No
Mm.
one is going to care about me now that I'm this age.
Whoa. That's an interesting one. I think the first thing we'd be working on is their belief system. I'd be wanting to understand what was it that was giving them evidence that told them that that was the case. We'd definitely be diving into all their life's accomplishments and looking back and just recognizing their achievements, their celebrations, all the wins, all the incredible things that they've done, people they've helped, support roles they've played, and really build up that sense of how just amazing that individual is. And then look at, what the advantages are of being menopausal and postmenopausal. The fact that we don't, if we've had our children that we want to have, because that's another conversation, but if we are at that menopausal age, We've either had or not had children as we wished. And we now don't have to worry about contraception. We don't have to worry about being able to wear the white trousers. We don't have to worry about all the monthly cycles and ups and downs. We don't have to. There's so many things that we can just let go of. And so many of us get an uptick in testosterone slightly after menopause that, that confidence, heck, we can do whatever we want. So again, there's many, many more things that we can do with confidence and confidence techniques and just demonstrating and helping people look at themselves from the outside world's point of view and get them to really recognize how incredible they are so that they can continue to do whatever they set their heart and their mind to going forward. So everyone's unique and different in terms of what sort of support we would offer, but it's really just reminding people that they are absolutely incredible and amazing.
Yes, and I think it's kind of it's a shift in focus. It's really how you are either taking in what you are seeing in society that's bad, or if you are shifting the focus and seeing, especially in places like Okinawa, people are revered when they age. People are respected. People come to them for advice. Here, I think you get a lot of the messaging that, when you become older, you're going to be put into a home and no one's going to want to take care of you and everyone's going to forget about you. And I think it's so important to shift that narrative. You can be at this age a guiding light, a force of nature for younger women so that they don't have to absorb that messaging. They can see if you are, tuned in internally as opposed to kind of trying to get all of your self-esteem from, culture out there. If you're tuned into yourself and you are confident in yourself, you're going to be an inspiration to other women that they can look at midlife as a place where they can just rock and succeed and not care about what other people think. I like that you said that earlier, that, you're like, maybe I'll put on makeup, maybe I won't. You're either going to like me or you're not. And that, I think, is a clear example of that.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is I'm maybe very fortunate. I come from a city, Glasgow in Scotland, that hasn't got the healthiest reputation. People die younger than normal. I've got two parents in their 80s. My dad goes for his morning walk every day. He socializes by mixing with his friends at 11 o'clock for coffee every day. My mum goes to the gym 3 times a week. I've never had this concept that there was anything I couldn't do. I've never been surrounded by that or sucked into it. And I think that you look for the evidence in the world. It's exactly what you just said. You look for the evidence in the world to support your beliefs. So if we get to choose our thoughts and we get to choose how we use our energy into our actions to get better results. So I think it's we're living through some really interesting times.
Yes, I agree. I think, you're really touching on something that a lot of people don't really believe they have much control over, which is their mindset. I truly believe no matter what you've come from, no matter the background, whether it's, and I treat a lot of people who've gone through significant trauma, it's so important to learn from that. It's so important to embrace and understand what you've gone through. It's so important to address your mental health. But you don't have to make your past your, life sentence. You can change your mindset. You can learn from the past, but then decide right now, what do you want for yourself? And I think when you do that, you empower yourself. Give me a little picture of how you help people change that mindset.
Through the coaching program. So, we either do that as a one-to-one or in groups. We also deliver it as talks and training on a more corporate level. And it is by taking people through exercises, and it will depend what our remit is and what it is we're actually trying to do with an individual or with a group. So we will get people to get very honest with themselves. We'll maybe do some free writing. So we'll just set a timer, get paper and pen out, get them to write down whatever noise is in their head, whatever stories they're telling themselves, and then go back with a highlighter and highlight the facts in one color and highlight the other nonsense in another color, and then let's work with the facts and then look for the evidence that backs up the good stuff. And we get people to completely use the story. They'll come and tell me that a dreadful incident, a traumatic incident happened, and they'll come in and it'll be the worst thing and they'll be emotional, and then we go, great. And they look at you as if to say, why are you saying great? What's great about that? I said, I'm not saying great about your story. I'm saying great that you've been able to share that with me. I'm grateful to you for doing that. Now let's look at the story and choose one from it.
Yes.
And then they're like, and then you can see the mindset shift. And then by the time we finish the session, it's kind of like, you know, the shoulders are back and down. They're sitting up tall. The story is the survival story, and it's now coming out of survival, and they're ready to thrive. And that's such a beautiful shift. But it will depend on the group. It will depend on the people that we're working with. There's so many different tools and techniques that we can use. So, but it is very much getting people to interrogate their own thoughts and recognize that that's all their thoughts are. They're just thoughts, and we get to choose whether or not we believe them or use them or change them. So I love doing that.
Yes, that's the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy. Your thoughts affect your feelings, affect your behaviors. And so it's really important for us to mind our minds. I always bristle when I hear somebody say, oh, I'm old. I'm old. And I'll never get this and I'll never get that. I'm like, oh gosh, you got to watch out what you're saying because that can come true. You want to make sure you're saying, I feel young. I am young at heart forever. I embrace joy. I am so grateful for this or for that. I am so thankful. And speaking of that, I am so thankful for you coming onto this podcast, Lauren. I think that you are a shining light out there for women, for everyone to understand this very important stage of our lives and to make sure that we're not casting aside anybody, that we are, really celebrating people of all ages because they all have something really valuable to give to us. So thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you.
Absolutely. And thank you for tuning into the ANEW Body Insight Podcast. We look forward to our next exciting interview. Stay tuned for more. Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Body Insight Podcast. Please remember, the content shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Body Insight Podcast tab. Follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.